My children, gather close and listen well, for in this tale lies both sweetness and bitterness, like kola nut on the tongue. In the land of Ajigu, a place blessed with peace and laughter, the people lived as one big family. They worked hard in their trades, farmers, weavers, hunters, traders, all striving for daily bread with joy in their hearts. Whoever entered Ajigun felt welcome, for the people believed strongly in the saying, "The visitor brings blessings, even if his hands are empty." Now, in this same Ajigun, there was a man named Malam Musa. Malam Musa. To the eyes of the villagers, he was as gentle as the morning dew. He spoke little, smiled often, and carried himself with the quietness of a man at peace with the world. But most of all, the people loved him for his craft, his suya. If you have never tasted suya before, then you may not understand the spell it casts. The aroma alone could lift a weary man's spirit. When Musa's suya touched fire, the whole street would sing with the fragrance. The beef, soft as ripe pawpaw, spicy as fresh pepper soup, and tender as a mother's embrace. Once you tasted it, you could not resist. The people often said, even the teeth do not complain when the food is sweet. Very quickly, Malam Musa became the pride of Ajigu. Old suya sellers who had been there before him were forgotten like yesterday's rain. At first, they were angry. But when they too tasted his meat, their anger turned to silence, for the truth was undeniable. Musa's suya was in a world of his own. Still, the villagers could not help but wonder, what was the secret of this man? What gave his suya such sweetness? Many tried to guess. Some said it was the spice. Some said it was the firewood. Others claimed it must be the oil. But my children, the tortoise does not show his tricks at the market square. Musa kept his secret locked deep, and no one could unravel it. What shocked the people even more was the price. The suya was not only delicious, it was cheap, cheaper than any other in Ajigu. Competitors scratched their heads in confusion. How could Musa sell so low and still thrive? Did he not care about profit? Was he not afraid of loss? But all their thinking ended in dust, for no answer came. One by one, the old suya vendors abandoned the trade, unable to compete. And so Musa flourished. From a small table by the roadside, his trade grew like palm tree in fertile soil. Soon, he opened a shop, then another. Before long, there were 3 shops in different corners of Ajigu, all carrying the name of Musa. People traveled from near and far just to taste the famous Malam Musa suya. His business grew like fire in Hamatan. But Musa had one strange way. Though his business expanded, he never allowed anyone to cut or prepare the meat with him. Workers could sell the suya at the shops, yes, but Musa alone handled the cutting, washing, and roasting in his house. He carried the prepared meat to the shops himself, sweating day and night, yet refusing to share that part of the work. The monkey that eats alone dies alone, the elders say. His workers grumbled among themselves, wondering why Musa would not trust them. One day, they called him to a meeting. "Oga Musa," they said respectfully, "we thank you for giving us this chance. We know how much you work. Allow us to take some burden from your shoulders. Let us go to the market, buy meat, wash it, roast it. That way, the business will be faster and the customers will not complain when they wait." But Musa only smiled that strange smile. "My people, your concern warms my heart, but my suya must be prepared my way. If I leave the work in your hands, my customers will no longer know the taste they desire. Do you want me to lose them?" The workers nodded reluctantly. But one of them, Dra, was not satisfied. Dra was stubborn, the kind of man who believed in finding out what lay behind the curtain, so he decided to see for himself. One early morning, while the cock was still clearing his throat, Dra went quietly to Musa's house. His plan was simple: follow Musa to the market and learn his secret. But when he arrived, he found the door strangely open. He entered slowly, only to hear the sharp, steady sound of a knife cutting flesh. When he stepped inside, his eyes widened. There was Musa, bent over a large table, cutting meat. But it was not the sight of the cutting that shook Dra's spirit. It was the look of fear that flashed in Musa's eyes the moment he saw him. "Musa, Oga, what time do you even wake up to do all this?" Dra asked, trying to cover his shock with laughter. But Musa's face twisted with rage. "You good-for-nothing boy! Who gave you the right to enter my house, eh? Get out now! You are fired! Never show your face in my shop again!" His voice roared like thunder. Dra was stunned. He left in shame, his heart heavy. All he had wanted was to help the business grow, yet his loyalty had bought him only rejection. When the drum beat changes, the dancer must also change his steps, he muttered bitterly to himself. Weeks passed. Dra found work at another Suya joint, second best in Ajigu, run by a man called Bashiru. Bashiru was shocked when Dra told him the story of how Musa had thrown him out. He frowned, stroking his beard. He said, "I have suspected for long that Musa's hands are not clean. No man keeps such tight secrets without reason. If he has nothing to hide, why so much anger? My son, Dra, your eyes have seen something unusual. I will get to the root of this matter." And so, suspicion began to spread like whispering wind. But listen, my children, the real story was yet to unfold. For the one who would stumble upon Musa's deepest secret was not Dra nor Bashiru, but a woman very close to his heart, his own lover, Joy. It happened on a quiet evening. Joy entered Musa's house, hoping to surprise him. But what she saw froze her very soul. From a giant fridge, Musa pulled out a body. Yes, a human body. He laid it on the table and began to cut, humming as though it were nothing but goat meat. Joy's hands trembled. Fear wrapped around her like a snake. She stepped back, ready to run, but in her panic, her hand knocked down a plate. The sound echoed through the room. Musa turned sharply. His eyes, once gentle, now burned like fire. He rushed forward, and there before him stood Joy, the woman he loved, the woman who had just uncovered his darkest secret. And so the story thickens, for the night does not reveal all its secrets at once. What Joy had seen in Musa's house was something that shattered the heart. The gentle man the village hailed as their pride, the man whose Suya united friends and strangers alike, was hiding a darkness that could choke the moonlight itself. That night, when Musa's eyes met Joy's, silence fell like a heavy stone. He stood rooted, his face pale as cold ash, while Joy trembled with tears flowing down her cheeks. She asked, "Why, Musa? Why would you do this?" But he gave no answer. Only his eyes burned red like firewood still hot after the flames have died. Joy turned and ran. She did not stop until she reached the house of Bashiru, the rival Suya man, who had long suspected Musa's ways. Gasping, crying, her voice breaking like a cracked drum, she told him all she had seen. The arms, the legs, the heads of men and women kept inside Musa's giant fridge. Bashiru was not surprised. He had always said, when the lizard nods its head, it is not always out of respect. Sometimes it hides something. Without wasting time, he gathered his men and together they stormed Musa's house. When they opened the fridge, their hearts shook within them. Human heads stared back at them, hollow eyes frozen in death. Skeletons and bones lay stacked, trophies of Musa's unholy trade. They dragged Musa straight to the chief's palace. Under the blazing torchlight, before the people of Ajigu, Musa confessed with his own lips he had been luring the weak and homeless into his house with promises of food and shelter, only to butcher them and serve their flesh as suya. The people wailed. Mothers covered their mouths. Fathers shook their heads in disbelief. Some staggered as if struck by lightning, whispering, "We have been eating our own brothers and sisters all this while." They tried to spit it out, tried to vomit, but alas,
How can one return what has already passed the throat? The chief, his face dark with sorrow, declared Musa guilty. He was sentenced to life in prison. But though his body was locked away, his evil had already poisoned the memory of Ajigu. The people could no longer look at Suya without trembling. Joy herself wept bitterly. What had begun as a mission to expose Musa had turned into a trap for her own heart. Somewhere in the process of pretending to love him, she had truly fallen in love with him. And now she was left broken, torn between love and horror. She cried not just for herself, but for the souls of the innocent, whose lives had been roasted away in smoke. From that day forward, Suya was banned in Ajigu. No man dared roast meat on fire again, for the people said, when a child is burnt by hot soup, he blows even on cold pap. The memory of Musa's wickedness was too heavy to ignore. The very smell of roasted meat brought fear instead of hunger. But before all this came to pass, let me take you back to the moment when suspicion first rose among the villagers. It was the chief's birthday, a day that had always been filled with joy. Every year, the people of Ajigu dressed in their finest attires, beads shining, rappers dancing to the rhythm of drums, and they all gathered in the palace square. There, they ate, they sang, they danced, and they listened to the wise stories of the chief, who loved to remind them that a community without stories is like a tree without roots. That year, Musa was chosen as the Suya man for the occasion. His fame had spread far and wide, and many even traveled from neighboring towns to taste his delicacy. On the chief's birthday, food and gifts were always free, and the people's excitement no bounds. They waited eagerly for Musa's Suya, some whispering, "Today we will eat till our bellies sing." Musa worked tirelessly that day, more than ever before. The smoke rose, the aroma carried across the palace grounds, and people fought to get their share. He was drained, his body heavy with exhaustion. After delivering fresh meat to his workers at the stores, he quietly excused himself and left the palace to rest at home. There, in the silence of his room, Musa lay fast asleep. But in his dreams, a strange chant echoed. "He buys humans, he buys humans. Is that why his suya is so cheap? Look at this meat. Does it not resemble human flesh?" At first, Musa thought he was only dreaming. He turned in his bed, covering his ears. But then, bang! A loud knock shook his door. He woke, heart pounding. When he opened the door, he saw the villagers outside, angry and restless, their hands full of sand which they hurled at him in fury. "Malam Musa, tell us the truth. Whose tooth is this? Whose blood is in your suya?" He staggered backwards, fear and confusion battling in his chest. They dragged him to the chief's palace. There, the chief looked at him with eyes heavy like thunder clouds. "Malam Musa," the chief said, his voice firm, "ever since you came to this town, we welcomed you as our own. But today, something dark has happened. The people have found a tooth in your meat, one that looks human, not animal. Tell us, what do you have to say?" Musa fell on his knees, tears streaming. "My chief, I love this town as my own. I will never do such a thing. This must be a prank, a wicked setup by my enemies. You all know how many suya sellers envy me. They must have planted this in my meat to destroy me." His voice cracked, his tears flowed like rain on a zinc roof. The people, soft of heart and remembering his kindness, began to believe him. They murmured, "Yes, it must be jealousy. The other Suya men have long hated him." The chief sighed deeply. "Alas," he said, "very well, Musa, we forgive you. But be careful. A man walking at night must know that shadows follow him." And just like that, Musa was free again. The villagers wiped their doubts away, convinced it had been nothing but a setup. He returned to his business, working harder, smiling more, and being twice as careful. The people trusted him once more, but not everyone was fooled. Bashiru, his old rival, shook his head quietly. A snake may lie still, but that does not mean it is dead. In his heart, he remained convinced that Musa's hands were not clean. And so, the shadow of suspicion lingered over Ajigu, though the people pretended not to see it. For the drumbeat of life continued, and soon other stories began to distract them. But fate had not finished its work, and Musa's secret was only biding its time.